Բարև ձեզ, այսօր հյուրընկալել ենք Հայաստանում ՄԱԿ Պարենի և գյուղատնտեսության կազմակերպության ներկայացուցիչ Raimund Jehleին. Good evening, Mr. Jehle. Welcome to Armenia. UN Food and Agriculture Organization is celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. Could you share with us how this milestone reflects the organization's ongoing mission and vision?
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be also with you. Indeed, the 80th anniversary of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization is a remarkable anniversary, taking into consideration that we were founded in principle after the World War II with the food crisis the war has created at that time in Europe. And I think it's on one hand unfortunate that we are still facing hunger and food insecurity in the world. We have still more than 732 million of hungry people globally, and in the last couple of years they have been further increasing. And so the mandate, the importance of the organization in this case is still more than ever evident. And we have the Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030, of, in principle, eradicating hunger with a zero hunger goal, and therefore the FAO work in this case is of course also remarkable. On the other hand, we also have to take into consideration that if we're looking into food production, if we're looking into how we were able to feed the world with an increasing population, then of course also the support in terms of technology, the support to agricultural production, the support to food production is really also quite important. And the vision and the importance of the organization, even being with, if you take it with human being age old, we are, I think, agile and young more than ever with our mandate.
And Armenia walked a long path with the organization. The Republic of Armenia officially became a member of FAO in 1993, and in 2004 the FAO Representation Office was founded in Armenia. The organization has carried out many significant projects and research initiatives in Armenia. Mr. Jehle, could you highlight some of the key projects and present the current focus of the organization's work in our country?
Indeed, if we are speaking about the 80th anniversary with being 40 years in Armenia, with Armenia joining 40 years ago, I think it's also a remarkable time. And with opening the office, of course, also in 2004, I think we have further geared up. Key, let's say, supporting partners are, of course, the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry also of Environment. And if we're looking at the range of activities which FAO and the results which we have achieved over time, we can distinguish in fact two pillars. There is one which is related to policy support, agriculture transformation of the food systems will not be possible without, let's say, the policy support addressing the policy. And one key I think work which we have done over time is certainly also supporting the development of a law for land, supporting in this case also the possibility to bring abandoned land, non-utilized land also into production. And if we're taking the second pillar, it's of course also working with people, working with the farmers. We have supported, for example, the establishment of a vine collection orchard, which has been very significant in order to have the specific wine rootstocks of Armenia, which are a basis for developing further also the wine sector. Is of importance. We have had also done projects in this context which were supporting the area of fish farming in the sense of increasing the environmental let's say, sustainability with recirculation of, for example, the water which is going to be used in the case of aquaculture. And then I would certainly also emphasizing projects which we have done over time in order to really support the capacity development of the farmers. We are supporting these days very strongly, on one hand, the improvement of land management. Armenia is facing also land degradation from water, degradation also from wind erosion. So we are supporting in this case the capacity development, the legal and the institutional environment to achieve land degradation neutrality. And last but not least, I also would like to mention a large project which is funded by the Global Green Climate Fund, which is supporting afforestation. There is the intention up to 2029 to provide afforestation to Armenia, which in this case means to put new areas into forests, as well as also restoration of existing forests in order to cope with the objectives of reducing CO2 emission and to make a significant contribution to reduce the impacts also of climate change, because Armenia is of course also affected by climate change, in this case also significantly.
UN FAO was one of the first organizations to initiate support efforts in response to the emergency situation. Could you provide more details about the initiative and its objectives, goals, also how it supports displaced people in Armenia?
Yeah, I mean, we have this tragic, of course, situation of people coming from Nagorno-Karabakh and in this case also needing to find, in this case also economic opportunities and economic activities. We are in this case having also, I would say, a two or a twin track approach or a two-pillar approach. The first one is of course also the immediate needs. The people were coming from NK and, for example, in Tavush, we have supported them then with, for example, direct inputs for being able to start farming, in this case immediately inputs in terms of, for example, chicken. Chicken is a typical life-saving support element, because the eggs can be of course also consumed. It's an important, let's say, nutrient input, but on the other hand, it is also an important element to create income, because you can also in this case also sell the incomes. Second one is we are providing them of course also with feed for their animal in order to really have the direct support. And the second part of our direct support, in this case also to the farmers, is the pilot project which we have access to land. If the farmers who are coming as IDPs in this context want to have a longer term perspective, it is really important that they will have access to land. And so we have run, in this case also a pilot where rent is going to be rented, land which might be not currently utilized, and we are supporting them with a certain time where some of the costs are going to be covered, and we hopefully, with the technical knowledge which they are going to get, then for example in putting also orchards in place to get a longer term sustainable development path, and therefore ensuring also their livelihood over time.
And Mr. Jehle, land access can be also a sensitive issue, especially for refugees. How does this pilot project you mentioned help ensure that refugees have a sustainable way to integrate into local communities?
Well, land indeed is a sensitive issue. On the other hand, I was referring also before, Armenia has a lot of abandoned, unutilized land. And one of the key requirements also for agricultural development is indeed to make this unutilized land further available. And I think the way how we are organizing, in this case also the pilot, that we identify such kind of land. We are supporting these refugees with an initial period covering some of the costs, is really a sustainable way, because agriculture is an attractive economic activity in Armenia. There are export opportunities when we talk about fruits and vegetables, particularly when we talk about also, in this case, also fruits. So so-called perennial crops orchards will in this case definitely provide an opportunity for the farmers to be in a long-term sustainable. But on the other hand, we have, of course, also other opportunities in the case of livestock, in the case of other products, because there is a demand, there is a need also, in this case also in Armenia. Dairy is an opportunity. The dairy farm area is also to be further developed. So there are opportunities for refugees who have, I think that's one of our contextual analysis, who have quite good knowledge. They have been in their previous places farming on a good technical knowledge, and I think with that one there is a good future, and there is, I think, let's say a double benefit. The benefit, of course, for the refugees for a longer livelihood, but the second one, of course, also to utilize some of the land and to support the agricultural development of Armenia overall.
And food systems transformation is a key area of focus for FAO globally. What steps is the organization taking in Armenia to support this transformation, Ms. Jehle, and how do you see Armenia's food systems evolving in the coming years, and what role will FAO play in shaping this transition?
I'm glad that you mentioned this terminology of food systems, because it gives me a bit also the opportunity to explain, because maybe many people would probably say, okay, what is food system? What does it mean? Why do we not talk about agriculture? Why do we not talk about, let's say, farming? The reason why we're talking about food systems is because the production of food and at the same time the development is a complex issue. We are not just talking about the production of wheat, the production of fruits and vegetables, but we're also talking about how is it consumed, how does the production contribute, in this case also to improve, for example, the challenge of healthy diets. The European and Central Asia, but as well, of course, also many countries of the region are facing more and more problems also with obesity, with overweight. So it's also important that we are creating, in this case, a system which connects, on one hand, sustainable production. Sustainable production means with no environmental negative trade-offs. Sustainable production which in principle facilitates the mitigation and the adaptation to climate change, less water utilization, but at the same time less CO2 emissions, and at the same time also the healthiness for the consumer, that the products are healthy, that the food in this case also is safe, and these in principle we are bringing together as a food systems approach. And if we are talking about this in Armenia, going back to what I mentioned already also before, it's really very important that we are facilitating more climate smart agriculture, the adoption of the production, that we are promoting in this case also the consumption of healthy diets, the increase of consumption of fruits and vegetables is in this case also important, and that we are in this case also creating a sustainable food systems, in the sense that we are having an increase also of production, marketing. Armenia in a number of cases is currently exporting raw products and not necessarily creating the value of the product also in the country. And so creating such a healthy food system is the important point which we are promoting. We are working very closely in this case together with the Ministry of Environment, and the critical action here is to strengthen the different pillars of the system and to have in this case also a joint approach. Food systems is not only the responsibility of the Ministry of Economy or of the agriculturists. It requires also the involvement of the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Social Affairs, as well as also the civil society actors and also the private sector.
And looking forward, what are the primary challenges in Armenia's agricultural and food sectors that FAO plans to address in the next few years, Mr. Jehle?
Well, a challenge, of course, is the climate change. The precipitation is something which, of course, is not going to further increase. We have, and we have seen this, I think, also last year, increase of disasters, flooding. So the mitigation and particularly the preparedness, the resilience in this case of the farmers for this, with either adequate crops who are more maybe drought resistant, with of course also the way how farming has been done to reduce, I was talking about before, erosion and facilitating in this case to prevent in this case also floods is important. But another challenge of course for Armenia is also the issue of land, let's say, fragmentation. So land consolidation is a key issue, and connected to projects which we are also working, afforestation will be a key challenge. And of course we also require the adjustment of the policies. Armenia's agriculture has a great potential. There are potential also for exporting excellent products of Armenia. In this case, we need to address the issue of food safety. We need to address the issue of exploring also new markets abroad. And this is the areas which Armenia has to challenge. And at the same time, we from FAO are ready to support Armenia on this endeavor.
And Mr. Jehle, is there a specific message you would like to share with the Armenian people as we look forward towards the future of food security and sustainable development?
I think the message which I, of course, would share is, as I mentioned this also at the beginning, food is not only the consumption of the product, but food is culture, food is life, and therefore a sustainable agriculture and the recognition of the sustainable agriculture and the recognition of agriculture as such a key element in the society is something which, of course, from the mandate of FAO, from my personal point of view, I would very much like to see that the society is going to take this on board. And in this case, I'm looking forward to future visits in the country.
Thanks for the interview, Mr. Jehle.
Thank you for having me here.
Այսօր իմ հյուրն էր Հայաստանում ՄԱԿ պարենի և գյուղատնտեսության կազմակերպության ներկայացուցիչ Ռայմունդ Ջելեն։ Հաջողություն։